All right, I'm here with Greg Kitson, who owns Mind's Eye Graphics. And Greg, if you wouldn't mind, could you give us a brief history of your company and the products and service that you offer?
Mind's Eye Graphics is a 30-year-old Indiana-based contract screen printer. In addition to contract screen printing, we do limited embroidery. We do custom work for the local school, business, and corporate market. But the majority of our work comes from our relationship with national marketing companies and other printers who use us for excess capacity. For instance, somebody who has a 6-color manual screen printing press in the back of their sporting goods store but has an opportunity to do 2,500 8-color shirts for a summer festival, that's the type of work that is our bread and butter. So, 23,000 square feet, 14 full-time employees. As I said, we've been there about 30 years.
Okay. And do you also do contract printing on the direct-to-garment side as well?
We started doing contract decorating with our DTG. And when we first got it in, published a price list, thought we would go to town on it, and decided that that wasn't the best way for us to deal with it. So now, with local companies or companies that we have a relationship with, what we'll do is, in order to provide contract decorating services with our digital, we require their participation in what we call contract boot camp. They come in and spend a minimum of 4 hours with us, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of digital direct-to-garment technology, which makes them a much better seller of the product. Then, after they complete that 4-hour overview, the boot camp, then we'll give them a price list, and we do contract decorating for those select few customers.
Okay. I remember speaking with you for the past couple of years, and you were looking at different direct-to-garment printers. Can you kind of describe a little bit of your thought process when you were evaluating the different ones, and what ultimately made you make the decision to go with one printer?
About 2005, 2006, at the SGIA shows, digital direct-to-garment was all of the buzz. That's what everybody was talking about, what it was going to do to the traditional screen printing business. I didn't believe the doom and gloom that digital printing was going to eliminate traditional screen printing, but looked at it rather as an additional tool that we could offer to our customers, for those customers that wanted low quantity, full color printing. And watched that for about 3 years before we actually made the choice of the equipment that we bought. Since we were a contract shop and we had a volume mentality, we're not particularly interested in some of the small machines that did one shirt at a time and then rewound and loaded another shirt. And the equipment that we ultimately picked had a pass-through technology that allowed us to do almost continuous printing, where we could keep that print head moving as much as we possibly could, because we knew that was the only time we were really making money, was when that print head was moving and the machine was making noise. So that was what really ended up with that decision. We also wanted a machine that had a little bit higher volume of potential throughput, and the pass-through machines all had the best potential throughput. We did some testing on various machines where we would take the same file and print it on 3 different machines, and in 2007, when we were doing our final evaluations, we saw what I considered to be an unacceptable color variation when we had 3 machines. So in our volume situation, if we wanted to do an order of 72 shirts, but it might have a cycle time of 10 or 12 minutes per shirt, I would look at running it on 3 individual machines, and I didn't want to have 3 machines with 3 different color challenges. I'm by no means a color expert. I didn't want to become a color expert. I didn't want to have to get into extensive profiling of the machines to make sure that they all printed the same 185 red. and by getting the pass-through machine with one set of print heads that we dealt with, we eliminated that variable, or that perceived variable. What I've seen in the last year or two as the RIP technology has evolved is those color variations that I was seeing in the 2007 timeframe have pretty well gone away. That in a correctly set up machine that's had its maintenance done on it, if you're printing a color photograph, the color photograph looks pretty much the same on multiple machines. So that was a perception on my part that really didn't come true, but that was all what contributed to my purchase of the pass-through machines.
Okay. You had mentioned that you have a pretty large facility itself. Can you describe a little bit about the size of your DTG operation and the layout?
The DTG operation, we realized that it would not be suitable in our screen printing production area. And that's something that you have to accept, and if you're not willing to control the environment, you don't need to even consider buying the machine. What most people in our industry don't realize is our real product is lint. And if you're in a lint factory, a digital printer doesn't get along in that situation. So we took a 40 by 50 area that had previously been devoted to our vinyl sign shop. We did traditional CAD cut vinyl signage, and our embroidery area. We have a limited embroidery capability. And it was humidity controlled and heated and air conditioned year round, and it was isolated from our open production area, where in the summertime the staff would open the overhead doors and let all the dirt and dust blow in and all the humidity blow in. And because traditional vinyl cutting has been almost entirely supplemented by digital printing, that business was in decline. So we rededicated that space that was in our digital sign shop, or our CAD cut sign shop, and turned it into our digital printing area. And of that 40 by 50-ish area, we have an area that's 20 by 30 that is devoted entirely to our pre-treat, automatic pre-treat machine, our two digital garment printers, and 6 transfer machines that we use for curing and drying.
Excellent. There's a lot of ways you can go about setting different pricing techniques depending on what garment decorating technique you use. Do you have any suggestions for anybody that's getting into DTG of things they should consider when they set their pricing?
When you start thinking about pricing DTG products, the biggest mistake, well, there's a couple big mistakes that people make, and it gets into perceptions. One is list price on inks is scary. And let's say $199, $299, $399 a liter. That's just terrifying to a screen printer who's used to paying $40 a gallon for a navy blue ink, that type of thing. The real pricing of DTG printing has to be based on time and the time involved. You're going to be using such a small quantity of the ink that you can't get caught up in the fact that that price calculator says that if I'm printing a navy blue shirt with a white underbase that I'm putting $2 worth of ink on the shirt. What's more important is it's taking you 8 to 14 minutes to print that shirt. So you need to look at what your overhead cost is and what your profit goals are, and sort of ignore what that ink cost is on what your raw materials are. The other thing that you cannot do is try to turn your DTG printing into commodity competition with what somebody's advertising on the internet, or what the screen printing price matrix that you're using is. Because if you're trying to use that screen printing price matrix and deliver a digitally produced shirt off of that, it's not going to work. You're going to either underprice yourself to the point where you're not making any money at it, so you're not going to get your ROI and you're not going to be happy with it, or you're outright going to go out of business. You can Google DTG printing or direct-to-garment printing or digital garment printing or 100 other variations that some of the online manufacturers have got locked down. And what you've got to remember is they may be running a building the size of a football field with 100 different workstations, and they're running those machines 24/7. And if you send them a digital file, they're going to print exactly what you send them, and they're not going to do anything to it to make sure it looks good. If you send them crap, they're going to print crap, and they're going to deliver it to you for whatever their price is. You don't have the same cost of production. So you've got to figure out where your cost of production is and make sure that you can deliver a product at a price your customers are willing to pay.
Okay. One of the things that I think isn't talked about enough during the sales process and in getting started with DTG printing is the pre-treatment process. Can you describe some of your process you went through when setting up and getting started with it, and how you tested to make sure that you had the right amount of pre-treat and how it was laid down?
With pre-treat, we determined right off the bat that since we had wanted to be a volume solution for our customers, and again, volume in DTG is not necessarily 24,000 shirts. Volume in DTG for many people is anywhere between 36 and 144. And that's where you have a lot of, do I screen print, do I DTG it questions. One of the things that we realized was using an airless sprayer with pre-treat materials was very much an inexact science. If you don't realize how much of a craft it is, before you make the purchase, go out to Home Depot and buy an airless sprayer, put distilled water in it, go out back of your garage or in your back room and get some cardboard. Spray the cardboard with the water. If you can't deliver an even, smooth pre-treat to that cardboard of the water, you're going to see the same variations of the blotches, the drips, the runs, the oversprays, and the voids on your shirt. So if the pre-treat is not done correctly, your print will not be done correctly. And the biggest issue that we had was the variability. We also use what we call the rule of Adam in our business. And Adam is going to be the next employee we hire. We have to put things into our production process that Adam can learn easily, that it's not going to take Adam 6 months to learn. Now, for those reasons, we chose to buy an automated pre-treat machine. Now, when we put the automated pre-treat machine in, one of the first things that we did as we did backyard calibration, if you will, was actually determined how fast the print heads were moving, how fast the spray head, not the print head, how fast the spray head was moving, what the air pressure was that was delivering the product, and how much product was being delivered in a single pass. We were spraying these into a container and then weighing them as we determined anywhere between 5 and 25 grams of the product was necessary to get us a repeatable, launderable print. We went through some fairly extensive testing on that, where we went through what we call destructive washing, where we actually went up to 50 launder cycles on white inks, and finally found what we were very comfortable with. And quite honestly, I don't remember what that number was, but I'm thinking it was in the 22 gram range for a full-size print, and recorded the settings on our particular machine so we could reproduce that. So by using the automated pre-treat machine, we've almost totally eliminated that variable for production loss of a pre-treat not being done correctly or having laundering problems. So the pre-treat was very, very important. And I find that a lot of people that talk to me about DTG don't really understand what pre-treat is or why you need to pre-treat or what pre-treat does. So I spend a lot of time, if they're screen printers, comparing it to a chemical flash or a chemical gel. And without getting into the chemistry behind it, explaining that as soon as the white ink comes in contact with the pre-treat, it's going to gel like a flashed print would be, so that it will then support the colors that are printed on top of it. So I think there's a real knowledge gap on what pre-treat is and why pre-treat needs to be done.
I agree with that. What type of fabric contents or different types of garments have you printed on using your DTG printer?
Literally everything. What we did, we're a large volume screen printer, so we've got way too many damaged shirts, mill damage, print damage, overrun, stuff that people ordered and never took, all those types of things. So as soon as we got the machines in, we started printing absolutely everything. We printed low fabric weights, the 4.9 and 5.1 ounce cottons. We printed high fabric weights. We printed ring spun cotton. We printed open-ended cotton. We printed cotton blends. We printed polyester blends. We printed the insides of the shirts. We printed the outsides of the shirts. We printed fleece. And what we found was we could make them all look better if we did what we've come to call a fabric mass compression prior to pre-treat, which is actually take 10 seconds in a heat press and mash down the surface to give us a better printing surface. And then when we pre-treat it and then dry the pre-treat, we have as close as we can come to a prepared surface to print on. Now, the better shirts, the higher cotton content, ring-spun cotton shirts, will give us a much better looking print, especially with photographic prints. And what we've done is prepared samples with a photograph of print A on the Gildan G200 6.1 ounce cotton shirt that is the standard of the industry, or like a Hanes Beefy Tee or those types of things, and then actually went into other garments. And we'll print them on 3 or 4 different garments. Then we let the customer make the decision on which garment that they want their shirt on. And we'll look at it and say, okay, this one's 14, this one's 16, and that one's 18. Which shirt would you like to have your photograph reproduced on? Which shirt would you like to have your image reproduced on? And almost every time when we have samples, they will pick the more expensive shirt because of the much better looking reproduction of the photograph. But at that point, the customer's making the decision. We aren't making the decision. So that's one of the biggest things that we had to learn when we got our DTG equipment, was that we have to become a proactive part of the sales relationship. You want fries with that? That type of analogy. And people buy better from samples than they do from a salesperson that's saying, oh, this will look better on this shirt. Unless we show them what it is, they're not aware of what the difference is.
Okay. Have you guys tried to print on anything else besides garments, and have you found that to be a profitable method?
We have not tried to print on anything other than textiles. We print a lot of tote bags, library tote bags, grandma craft bags, those types of things. Antique shows that'll sell them in their gift booth, concession booth, those types of things. And for something that we pay 86 cents for and sell at the same price as we do a t-shirt, it's one of the more profitable things we do. We just have to use a little masking tape to hold the straps down, those types of things. CDs, golf balls, pens, pencils, any of those substrates we haven't experimented at all with. We have never changed out the inks that came with the system. We've never tried any of the pre-treats that will make those inks adhere to other than textiles. So I have no experience in that area.
Okay. How important do you find it to perform the recommended daily and weekly maintenances on your printer?
There's a critical mass on the success curve of running these machines. We don't do any regular maintenance. We print our machines every day. So, well, let me rephrase that. We do clean wipers. We do put solvent into the sump to keep it from solidifying, because when that tube clogs up and it backs up, it's a hell of a mess to clean up. But as far as any nozzle checks, power cleans, any of those types of things, we just never have to do that because we're printing the machines daily. Now, if somebody doesn't have the ability to print their machines on a regular basis, what I would suggest is you consider, instead of going in and doing that morning 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or in today 5 minutes or 10 minutes, Look at your inventory of artwork. Look at those customers that you're selling your embroidery work to, or your trophy work to, or your traditional screen printing to, and take that opportunity to, instead of dumping ink down the waste tank, create a custom sample for a customer. You'll use the same amount of ink. It'll go through, it'll lubricate, it'll clean, it'll keep those nozzles open, and then you have a tool. Once you become comfortable doing this, invite those customers in to watch this machine run. What you're going to see when you're creating that sample for a customer is they're going to look at that and they're going to, wow, that's really cool. And pretty soon you're going to notice their heads going back and forth, left to right, as they're watching that print head traverse. You got them. That's the wow factor in those types of things. Now, I don't want to tell people they don't have to do maintenance. You have to pay attention to it. But what I'm saying is, rather than dump the ink down the waste tank with the cleans, the power cleans, the oh my god cleans, or whatever your system is calling it, print the machine. They want to print. They need to print. You're going to flush those lines the same way if you're creating a garment as if you're going into the waste tank.
Okay. I noticed on your website you have a picture of something called an anti-settling machine. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
One of the biggest, and this is what I call urban legends. The urban legends are that white ink will cause you all sorts of nightmares. White ink will prevent your machine from working. White ink will make you wish you never got into this industry. And what the response from the manufacturers is you need to agitate the ink. You need to rotate the ink. You need to shake the ink for 60 seconds every day. Everybody's got a different formula on it. What we determined was that we store our ink on our anti-settling device. And this is something that we made, and it's simply a length of conveyor system like you would see at a grocery store when they're unloading a truck. We put a small motor on it to rotate the rollers, and because we buy our ink in bottles, those bottles are set on that anti-settling device. We went to the hardware store and bought an $8 timer. That timer comes on for 6 minutes, 6 times a day, every 4 hours. So at 3 o'clock for 6 minutes, the bottles will rotate. And at 4 hours later, 7 o'clock, 6 minutes, it'll rotate. What we found that since we started storing our ink that way, instead of just sitting it in a bottle, that we have had almost no nozzle clogs. We've got no issues with white ink. Now, the machines we have a WIM system on them, which circulates 98% of the white ink in the system. And again, we're printing the machines every day. So the anti-settling device is something that we created to reduce the possibility of having the ink separate and create problems. Now, we put our colored ink on there as well as our white, and we also keep our pre-treat on there.
Okay. To wrap up this podcast, is there anything else that you think is important that we haven't already talked about for someone looking to buy a DTG printer or just getting into it?
Do your homework. Talk to owners, not just salespeople. And realize that there's going to be a critical mass involved. This is not a machine that you can take to the gymnastics meets on Saturday, print for a couple of hours, sell shirts, and then put it in the back of your minivan and take it to another gymnastics meet the next Saturday. It's just not conducive to this. These machines need to run. They need a controlled environment. There are people that make a lot of money doing concessioneering with these machines, but they're doing other things with them too.
Excellent. Well, Greg, thank you for your time. If you'd like to learn more about Mind's Eye Graphics, you can go to their website, which is www.mindseyegraphics.com or www.mindseyeG.com. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.